Hello, and today's date is the 27th of December 2020. If you haven't already, check out my other videos on this pelvic pain journey that I've been on. Today we're going to be reflecting back on 2020. When I started this journey, I actually have been making notes as I've gone along. Changes in my body, both positive and negative. So today I'm going to be going over some of the main points along this journey. 7th of December was 2019 was the first date I noticed a change in my body, almost like a sense of lightness in my body. If you think of the Wizard of Oz, the film, and you think of the character, the Tin Man, when he's all seized up and they come along and they put oil on his joints and he goes and then he's loosening up and then eventually he's able to move his arm. I think when he's chopping the wood and he's stuck in that position and he can move. It's a little bit like that. That's the only way I can explain it, because the tension has become so bad in my body. The 8th of January 2020 was a significant date. I'd been doing some of the monkey bar work for the front line of fascia and the abdominals, and about half an hour later, after getting off the monkey bars, I went to the toilet and I was actually able to open my bowels with no blood. And as I mentioned previously in my other videos, every time I went to the toilet it was like a bloodbath, pouring of blood, and it stopped. It came back, but it was a major breakthrough. 7th of February, I become very unwell. I developed a nasty cough and a temperature. In hindsight, I wondered whether I had actually developed COVID. I don't know, but I know for 3 weeks I wasn't able to do any of the exercises. I was so lethargic, and maybe it was COVID. Maybe it was. And that's why, hence, I don't include times when I've been unwell in the duration of this course. So even though I started in November, it's actually now only been a year, a year now actually, since I started this process. 19th of February, again, another big breakthrough. I was able to actually walk 5 miles. So within an 8-week period, I went from not being even able to walk across my living room floor to being able to walk 5 miles. And quite effortlessly. Yes, there was still tension there at that point and discomfort, but I was just about able to do it. 29th of February, I started working on the abdominals directly, because it'd been then 6 months post-surgery for my inguinal hernia, so I started to do some abdominal work. 4th of April 2020, I experienced a profound loosening up. So when I walked, it was almost like my body could accelerate, as if something had given and loosened that little bit more. 17th of April, I'm starting to obsess a little bit more about the obturator internus again. It feels tight, but is it really tight, or is it just responding to other muscles? 20th of April 2020 was a profound day. That was the day my daughter had hurt herself, and just to backstep a little bit here, you've got to remember that even picking up a laptop would cause me extreme tension and pain down my legs. Any lifting was a no-no. And she'd hurt her foot, and I went to her, and it was like it came over me that I had it in my body to be able to pick her up. It was like my brain was telling me, my body was telling me I had the ability to pick her up, and I had nothing to fear. And I know, like, you hear the stories where mothers have picked up cars off their children and stuff like that, extreme strength, but it wasn't like that at all. This was like a connection with my body, and my body was telling me, yes, you can do this, and I didn't fear it at all in my body, because it was almost like for many years I feared hurting myself, and I had no fear. And not only did I pick her up, it was too easy, and it was like she was light to me, and I felt light in my body. And I would later go on, not only was to be able to lift her up, bearing in mind she's 9 years of age, and I've not been able to pick her up since she was 2, but I was even able to lift her and carry her up bloody steep hills, for God's sake. I mean, how the hell was breathing exercises and bloody passive stretching enable you to do that? You know? When you just focus on the pelvic floor. It's mental. 26th of April 2020. Again, this is pretty much discovered by accident, as a lot of things are, but I discovered I can squat for the first time in many years, effortlessly. 6th of June 2020. By this point I'm pretty much certain my left glute is totally inhibited, and I start to do an exercise called bridges, which is where you hold isometrically to try and get the glute to activate. Isometrics being against resistance, to try and drive that muscle to eventually have no option but to fire up, basically. And I was literally holding a bridge, holding that muscle for sometimes 5 minutes to try and get any sensation. It's also worth pointing out, by this point I'd also noticed I seemed taller in my body as the tension has been released. So I started to measure myself, and I discovered that I was actually 3 centimeters taller as well, as my posture had changed. Unfortunately, once I'd started to get a kind of connection to my left glute, now this sounds odd, but 2 days later I actually went to the toilet and felt my rectum swell up, and within half an hour I went all cold, my head was pounding, I had no energy, ended up in hospital. My inflammatory markers from my bloods were raised, and they wondered whether I had a prolapsed hemorrhoid, inflamed hemorrhoid, beginnings of an abscess, or infected hemorrhoid. And I came home and I decided I wasn't going to just sit down and do nothing, so I forced myself to walk, and I walked and I walked, and within a month I was feeling a lot better again. And it almost, I think recently of something Arnold Schwarzenegger said when he had his heart surgery. He went in for keyhole, ended up having open heart surgery, which lasted 14 hours, and when he woke up they said, "You ain't getting out of that bed, you're going to be in bed for several days." And Arnold Schwarzenegger said, "No, I'm not going to just lay here and end up with pneumonia. Go and get me a frame, I'm going to start walking." And he did, and within a few weeks he was back in the gym again, and he's 74 years of age. And I've been there, I've done that, and I know exactly what he's saying, basically, because you want to climb that ladder, you don't want to go back down that ladder. We then had another setback in October, where I strained my hamstring and a ligament in my foot, and in hindsight, I was so constricted that I was going, pretty much beyond the muscle's ability in terms of how flexible it was. So I was going beyond its ability, actually causing an issue, when I should have took the foot off the accelerator, trying to get that connection before you even think of going into ranges of motion. And I would highly recommend anyone starting this process to learn all the different muscles, learn which muscles are synergistic with which, and get yourself a diagram, colour in the muscles, get a feel of which muscles are strong, which are weak, which are inhibited, which are isometrically strong, which are concentrically strong, which are eccentrically strong, to try and get a better picture here. So yeah, that's that basically. So by the 9th of November, I'm experimenting a lot now, doing isometric clams for the glute medius, the glutes for the glute maximus, some plank work, Supermans, one leg tilting over. To try and get that connection back. And I've recently been experimenting with lung isometrics for the gastrocnemius muscle and soleus muscle in the calf, because I've had a lot of issues with my feet, and a lot of people doing DCT have issues with their feet. And I would highly recommend watching Greg's Hard Flaccid YouTube channel. He goes into this into a lot more detail. I will have to do a video of my own history with my feet. But it's like the chicken or the egg, which comes first? Is it the feet? Is it the pelvic floor? How they react to each other? I'm almost certain there is a link between foot issues and pelvic floor issues. And why you got to look at the whole picture here, really, you know. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of isometrics for my for that calf muscle, because it feels very tight, and we know a tight muscle isn't tight, it's actually very weak, as the fibres have all come together, and by isometrically working that muscle, you're trying to activate it, because you're losing a lot of strength in those fibres as they're bound together. So by releasing them, it can be, you know, as I mentioned with the abdominals and being able to pick up my daughter, the effects can be so profound once you've made that connection. It really can be profound. And this almost brings us up to date. On the 1st of December, I walked 14 miles, and to think a year ago, I couldn't even walk across the bloody living room, bloody floor. I was nearly crawling because of the bloody pain. So that's in a whole year, people, a whole year, which is crazy, really. And I'm in a hell of a lot better place. I feel better in myself. You know, I can get up like this. You know, no, just a little bit of tension there in the abductors, but yeah, I have a lot better. So here's to a happy new year to 2021, and hoping we all can get a COVID vaccine. And yeah, please check out my other videos. You learn about my story, how I was diagnosed with potential neuralgia, pelvic floor, and pelvic pain, pelvic floor dysfunction. And yeah, stay tuned. Thank you.